In 2017 alone, South African criminals stole 456 million rand from armored trucks, leaving 17 dead and 93 wounded. The man orchestrating much of this carnage was about to make the stupidest decision of his life, driving a stolen car to a shopping mall. Wellington Bibi Cenenda wasn't supposed to become South Africa's most feared gangster. Born in 1980 in Tembisa, he started as just another township resident trying to make it in post-apartheid South Africa. But between 2016 and 2018, he built something terrifying. A criminal network that pulled off 23 high-profile cash-in-transit heists across 4 provinces: Gauteng, Mpumalanga, Northwest, Limpopo. His operations spanned the entire old Transvaal region, now 46 million rand. That's what investigators say his network netted from these heists. But the real number might be higher. These weren't smash-and-grab robberies. They were military operations. The gang used automatic rifles, stolen vehicles, multiple getaway drivers. In at least one case, they used bombs. The May 2018 attack on Atlas Road in Boksburg showed just how far they'd evolved. A double cash van bombing that left the vehicles burning and guards scrambling for their lives. The Hawks would later call Cenenda the kingpin, the mastermind, the key to ending it all. Major General Prince Mokatedi put it simply: "We catch Cenenda, and we end it all." But that statement revealed something darker. If one man could orchestrate this much chaos, what did that say about South Africa's institutions? How had organized crime become more powerful than law enforcement? The answer wasn't in Cenenda's genius. It was in the system that created him. Cenenda didn't build his army from nothing. He recruited from South Africa's vast pool of desperate and disillusioned people. The gang included ex-convicts who knew the prison system inside out, former Zimbabwean soldiers who brought military training and explosives expertise, corrupt police officers who sold their badges for a cut of the loot. Even an ANC youth leader named Errol Valile Present joined the ranks. Now think about that for a moment. A political youth leader choosing armed robbery over political change. That tells you everything about where South Africa was heading. The recruitment wasn't random. Cenenda's lieutenant, Jabulani Boy Dodo, served as his bodyguard and helped coordinate the network. They specifically targeted people with skills. Former soldiers who could handle weapons and explosives. Security guards who knew the cash transport routes and schedules. Police officers who could provide intelligence and warning about raids. One gang member was a former Zimbabwean soldier skilled in military-grade explosives. Another was a Tshwane Metro policewoman who helped facilitate the heists from inside the system. David Mokadutle, one of Cenenda's co-accused, had allegedly killed 3 policemen during a 2015 chase. These weren't just criminals. They were trained professionals who'd switched sides. The economics made sense to them. A security guard might make 5,000 rand a month protecting cash trucks, but one successful heist could net millions. A police officer struggling with debt could clear it all with a single tip-off about transport schedules. In a country where unemployment among youth exceeded 50%, where former soldiers had no civilian prospects, where even political positions offered no real future, crime paid better than citizenship. Cenenda understood this mathematics of desperation. He didn't need to convince people to become criminals. South Africa's economy had already done that. He just needed to organize them. Behind every million stolen was a trail of blood. The human cost gets lost in the big numbers, but it was devastating. In 2017 alone, cash-in-transit heists killed 17 people and wounded 93. These weren't just statistics. They were security guards doing their jobs, police officers trying to respond, innocent bystanders caught in crossfire. The guards were the most vulnerable, often paid minimum wage to transport millions, equipped with outdated body armor, driving vehicles that couldn't withstand military-grade attacks. When Cenenda's gang struck that day in Boksburg, they didn't just use guns. They detonated bombs that turned armored trucks into death traps. Guards had seconds to escape before the vehicles became infernos. Now here's what makes it worse. The money stolen, that 456 million rand in 2017, didn't just disappear. It funded more violence. Every successful heist provided capital for better weapons, more vehicles, bigger operations. It created a cycle where violence funded violence. But zoom out and you see another economic picture. In communities where Cenenda operated, unemployment ran over 40%. Young men saw 2 options: compete for scarce legitimate jobs that barely paid survival wages, or join gangs that promised real money. The 46 million rand Cenenda's network stole could have funded schools, clinics, job programs. Instead, it went to bullets and blood. The security companies responded by upgrading vehicles, improving training, hiring more guards. But that meant higher costs, which meant higher fees, which meant less money for actual development in communities that needed it most. Every rand spent on security was a rand not spent on preventing crime through opportunity. Banks and cash transport companies were bleeding money, not just from theft, but from insurance, medical costs for wounded employees, psychological support for traumatized guards, recruitment to replace those who quit or died. The industry estimated total costs far exceeded the amount stolen. Some experts suggested the real economic impact approached R1 billion annually when you counted everything. This wasn't just crime. It was economic warfare against South Africa's attempt to build a functioning economy. The heists couldn't have happened without inside help. This is crucial to understand. Cenenda wasn't breaking into impenetrable fortresses through clever planning alone. He had the keys. Security guards sold transport schedules and routes. Police officers warned about planned raids and roadblocks. Bank employees leaked information about cash movements. Metro police looked the other way or actively participated. The corruption went deep into institutions meant to protect society. Take the Tshwane Metro policewoman arrested in the July 2018 raids. She wasn't some low-level officer taking bribes to ignore parking tickets. She was actively facilitating armed robberies that killed people. Or consider the security personnel who sold information about when trucks would be most vulnerable, when guards would be walking cash into banks, when vehicles would be stopped at specific intersections. Now, investigators found something even more disturbing. Many heists seemed to have inside information so detailed that the gangs knew exactly which trucks carried the most cash, exactly when guards would be most exposed, exactly where police patrols wouldn't be. This wasn't opportunistic crime, it was orchestrated betrayal. The corruption created a paradox. The more security companies hired guards, the more potential insiders Cenenda could recruit. The more police assigned to cash transit protection, the more officers who might be turned. Every expansion of security became an expansion of vulnerability. Some insiders were coerced through threats against families. Others were bought with money that dwarfed their annual salaries. But many simply saw no moral difference between protecting money for corporations and stealing it for themselves. When the state itself seemed corrupt, when politicians stole billions through tender fraud, when police chiefs were caught taking bribes, why should a security guard making poverty wages stay loyal? Cenenda exploited this moral vacuum brilliantly. He didn't need to corrupt the entire system. He just needed enough insiders to make the system corrupt itself. Every successful heist using inside information created suspicion among security forces. Guards didn't trust each other. Police didn't trust police. The institutions meant to fight crime started fighting themselves. By early 2018, the situation had become intolerable. National Police Chief Kayla Sitole authorized a special Hawks task force with one mission: end the cash-in-transit epidemic. The team set up in a makeshift headquarters in Johannesburg. Hundreds of investigators, including cybercrime specialists and forensic experts, worked around the clock. Now they faced a problem. Traditional policing had failed completely. Informants were unreliable because the gangs had penetrated police ranks. Raids on safe houses found them empty. Someone always warned Cenenda first. The Hawks needed a new approach. They turned to technology. Cell phone records revealed communication patterns between gang members. Bank data showed suspicious money flows after heists. Vehicle tracking exposed the stolen cars used in operations. The investigators built a digital map of Cenenda's network, identifying connections that human intelligence had missed. The pattern analysis was revealing. The gang's operations followed specific rhythms. They preferred certain routes, certain times, certain methods. The Boksburg bombing wasn't random. It fit a pattern of escalating violence in specific areas. Once the Hawks understood the patterns, they could predict future targets. But the breakthrough came from forensics. Every crime scene left digital footprints, phone signals, transaction records, vehicle movements. The investigators painstakingly reconstructed each heist, building evidence chains that connected back to Cenenda. They identified his lieutenants, his drivers, his inside sources. By July 2018, they were ready. The Hawks launched simultaneous raids across Gauteng. Within hours, they'd arrested 23 suspects. The network that had terrorized South Africa for 2 years was dismantled in a single morning. Among those arrested, Boy Dodo, Errol Valali Present, the Tshwane Metro policewoman, and numerous others who'd thought themselves untouchable. The operation was hailed as a significant breakthrough. Finally, it seemed, the state had fought back effectively. But Cenenda himself remained free. He'd narrowly escaped raids on his Tembisa hideout and a safe house in Limpopo. For months, he'd stayed ahead of the Hawks through paranoia and luck. Then came July 26, 2018. Cenenda was in Bloemfontein, far from his usual territory. Maybe he felt safe there. Maybe he was getting careless after years of evading capture. For reasons that remain unclear, he decided to drive a stolen car to a shopping mall. Now think about that. A man who'd orchestrated heists worth 46 million rand, who commanded a network spanning 4 provinces, who'd evaded hundreds of police officers, driving a stolen vehicle into a public parking lot. It defies logic. The officers who stopped him were doing routine checks. They weren't looking for South Africa's most wanted man, they were just checking vehicle registrations. But when they ran the plates and found the car was stolen, they looked closer at the driver. One officer recognized him immediately. Wellington Bibi Cenenda, the ghost of the East Rand, sitting right there in a stolen car. He was arrested on the spot. No shootout, no chase, no dramatic last stand. Just a quiet arrest in a mall parking lot after what the media would call a stupid mistake. The arrest made headlines across South Africa. The kingpin who'd terrorized the country for years, caught because he couldn't be bothered to drive a legal car. Some saw it as justice finally catching up. Others saw it as proof that criminals always destroy themselves eventually. But there's another interpretation. Maybe Cenenda had become so accustomed to impunity, so confident in his corruption network, so sure of his invincibility, that basic precautions seemed unnecessary. When you've paid off police, escaped raids, and stolen millions without consequence, why worry about a stolen car? His arrest revealed the psychology of successful criminals. They don't get caught because police get smarter. They get caught because they get stupider. Success breeds complacency. Survival breeds carelessness. The very traits that make someone a successful criminal, risk-taking, confidence, disregard for rules, eventually become their downfall. The Hawks proclaimed victory. Major General Mokatete's prediction seemed vindicated. Catch Cenenda and end it all. 23 arrests, the kingpin in custody, the network dismantled, case closed. Except it wasn't. Within months of Cenenda's arrest, new gangs emerged. Cash-in-transit heists continued across South Africa. The violence didn't stop. If anything, the power vacuum created more chaos as different groups fought to claim Cenenda's territory and methods. The legal system struggled to process the cases. David Mokateete, Cenenda's co-accused, wouldn't receive bail hearings until 2021. The charges were complex, 179 counts including robbery, murder, and explosives possession. Trials faced endless delays. Witnesses disappeared or refused to testify. Evidence got challenged on technicalities. Now here's what's really disturbing. Some of the arrested suspects were released on bail and allegedly returned to crime. The Tshwane Metro policewoman's case dragged through courts. Several co-accused claimed they were scapegoats, that Cenenda had acted alone, that evidence was fabricated. The same system that had failed to prevent the crimes now failed to punish them. Meanwhile, the conditions that created Cenenda remained unchanged. Unemployment still exceeded 40% in townships. Former soldiers still had no prospects. Security guards still made poverty wages guarding millions. Police were still underpaid and corruptible. The economic mathematics that made crime profitable hadn't changed at all. New technology helped track gangs, but gangs adapted with new methods. Banks upgraded security, but criminals upgraded weapons. It was an arms race with no winner, only casualties. The 456 million rand stolen in 2017 was matched or exceeded in following years. The death toll kept climbing. Criminologists warned that the cash-in-transit epidemic was cyclical. Arresting kingpins created temporary disruptions, not permanent solutions. As long as South Africa had massive inequality, weak institutions, and easy access to military weapons, the heists would continue. Cenenda wasn't the cause. He was a symptom. Some experts argued for systemic reforms, better wages for security guards, proper integration programs for former soldiers, economic development in townships, serious anti-corruption efforts in police ranks. But these solutions required political will and resources that seemed perpetually absent. The media moved on to new crime stories. The public accepted cash-in-transit heists as part of South African life, like load shedding or corruption scandals. Cenenda's name faded from headlines, replaced by new kingpins, new gangs, new violence. The system that created Cenenda remained intact. It would create more like him. The question wasn't whether another kingpin would rise, but when, and how many people would die before the next stupid mistake brought them down. Perhaps the most chilling part of Cenenda's story isn't his crimes or his capture. It's that his removal changed nothing. The heists continue, the violence continues, the corruption continues. South Africa caught its most wanted man, and nothing ended at all. In a country where crime pays better than citizenship, where institutions meant to protect instead prey on the vulnerable, where young men see more future in gangs than government, Cenenda wasn't an anomaly. He was inevitable. And until South Africa addresses the system that created him, there will be more Cenendas, more heists, more blood. The only question is whether the next kingpin will be smart enough to avoid driving stolen cars to shopping malls.